The house with non-existent rooms, a family moves into an old house and begins to notice that each week, a new room appears where there was once only a wall. These rooms shouldn't exist, and each holds memories of past tragedies that continue to haunt the living. The move to the old Victorian house in Ohio was anything but what I expected. The day began overcast and gloomy, as if the sky were reflecting the tension that hung between us. I remember looking out the car window as we drove through the narrow, tree-lined streets, the trees swaying in the wind, almost as if they were waving me goodbye. My heart tightened a little more with each turn, not only because of the fresh memories of my grandfather but also due to the sensation that we were about to step into something unknown, something that could change our lives forever. Come on, everyone. This is a new adventure. I tried to say, attempting to lift the mood. David, my husband, was focused on driving and seemed distant. Jennifer, my wife, forced a smile, but her eyes betrayed the fear she felt. Emily, our teenage daughter, sat silently in the back seat, headphones on, lost in her own world. The house loomed before us like an ancient sentinel, its windows appearing as eyes watching us. As we crossed the threshold, a sharp creak echoed through the hallway, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "It's just the wind," I said, trying to convince myself and calm Jennifer at the same time. But the truth was, from that very first moment, I knew the house had a life of its own. The creak sounded like whispers, as if the walls wanted to share ancient secrets, secrets that perhaps weren't meant for us. That night, as we finally settled in, the atmosphere was heavy. The silence was broken only by the sound of the wind battering the windows. "Did you hear that?" Jennifer asked, her nervous tone slicing through the calm. I took a deep breath and tried to ignore what sounded like footsteps dragging upstairs. "It's just the house settling," I said, trying to sound reassuring. But, in truth, I felt a knot in my stomach. "Let's try to sleep. Tomorrow will be a new day." Sleep came awkwardly, and I woke in the middle of the night, my mind filled with restless thoughts. I glanced at the clock. It was 3:30 in the morning. The silence was oppressive, and the feeling that something was off wouldn't leave me. I decided to get up and take a stroll around the house, maybe it would clear my mind. As I descended the stairs, I noticed the air had turned colder, as if the temperature had dropped suddenly. I walked down the dark hallway, trying to familiarize myself with the place. That's when I heard a noise coming from upstairs. It was like a whisper, something almost imperceptible that caught my attention. Hesitant, I climbed the stairs again, each step creaking under my weight. Upon reaching the upper floor, I noticed Emily's bedroom door ajar. I approached and pushed it gently. "Emily?" I called, but received no reply. The room was empty, but something caught my eye. A door at the end of the hallway, which I hadn't noticed before, was closed. A restless curiosity began to swell inside me. What was behind it? The next morning, as we had breakfast, I decided to ask Emily about the door I had seen. "Did you notice that door in the hallway?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Emily looked up from her plate. "Yeah, I saw it. But it's locked. I couldn't open it." "Maybe it's just an old door," David interjected, looking at us with a worried expression. "We can't let our imaginations run wild." But Emily's curiosity was evident. "I think we should try to open it," she said, a spark of determination in her eyes. I wasn't sure how David would react, but I knew the idea of exploring the house was growing on me. Something told me there was more than just walls and furniture here. After breakfast, I couldn't resist. I walked to the hallway and stopped in front of the door. The doorknob felt cold to the touch, as if it had been neglected for a long time. Maybe it's locked from the outside, I thought, but my curiosity was stronger. I needed to know what was on the other side. "David, will you come with me?" I called, knowing he could give me courage. He appeared, his worried expression still visible. "What did you find?" he asked, eyeing the door with suspicion. "I just want to see what's in there." "Let's just take a look," I said, trying to sound encouraging. He hesitated but eventually agreed. Okay, but if anything weird happens, we're out, right? I nodded and placed my hand on the doorknob again. The door felt stuck, but with a bit of effort, it slowly gave way, revealing a dusty and dark interior. The smell of mildew and old wood filled our nostrils, and a chill ran down my spine. Inside was a room that seemed to have been abandoned for decades. What struck me most were the walls covered in framed photographs, some black and white, others in color, but all in a state of decay. An unknown family smiled at us, but something in their faces seemed sad. "Who are these people?" David murmured, looking around with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. "I don't know," I replied, stepping closer to one of the photos. "It looks like they're family members." He picked up one of the photos, and the expression on his face changed. "This is my grandmother," he said, pointing to a woman with a gentle smile. "But I never knew her. And these others, who are they?" Just as we were about to get lost in questions, something fell to the floor behind us. We turned quickly and found an old box covered in dust. Feeling a surge of impulse, David picked it up and opened it. Inside were yellowed letters and objects that appeared to belong to another era. "These letters, they look old," he said, carefully holding one. "What do you think they say?" "I don't know, but we should read them," I replied, adrenaline rushing through my veins. David began to open the letters, and the words unfolded like a mystery waiting to be solved. Each sentence seemed to carry a weight, a burden that had been hidden for too long. As he read aloud, the atmosphere in the room began to change. I felt a pressure in the air, as if the walls were closing in, absorbing the tension we created. Stories of forbidden love, betrayals, and tragedies began to intertwine in our minds, and the connection to the past became increasingly tangible. "This letter talks about an accident," David said, his voice trembling. "An accident that tore the family apart." The chill I had felt earlier now transformed into a tingling sensation on my skin. "Do you think this has to do with the house?" I asked, fear starting to settle in my heart. "Maybe," he replied, now with a more serious expression. "We need to find out more about what happened here." The restlessness inside me began to grow, and the feeling that something else was coming kept me on edge. The answers we sought seemed closer than we imagined, but at the same time, the house seemed to be testing us. There was something more, something hidden in the shadows, and the curiosity to uncover the truth drove us forward, even as fear tried to hold us back. The house seemed to come alive with each step I took. It was as if the walls whispered forgotten secrets, and I felt drawn to them. After a long day of moving, I isolated myself from the noise of my parents and the busyness of the house. The atmosphere was heavy, laden with something I couldn't define. The new rooms that appeared seemed to have their own personalities, and the idea of exploring one of them intrigued me. My heart raced as I climbed the creaky stairs. The hallway upstairs was narrow and dimly lit, with sunlight filtering through the dusty windows, creating dancing shadows. A door at the end of the hallway caught my attention. I had never noticed it before, and a wave of curiosity washed over me. The doorknob was old, made of tarnished bronze, and felt much heavier than I expected. ####, why has this door never been here before? I murmured to myself, cautiously approaching. I reached out and grasped the handle, but to my frustration, I couldn't move it. The weight of the doorknob seemed to resist my touch, as if the door were screaming at me not to enter. "What place do you hide, mysterious door?" I took a moment to listen to the house. The silence was almost deafening. Something inside me longed to open that door and see what lay beyond, but my intuition whispered that perhaps it was better not to know. As I hesitated, an image of a girl appeared in my mind. She was smiling, but there was a deep sadness in her eyes. I averted my gaze, trying to shake off the vision, and lowered my hand. "Emily, are you okay?" My father, David's voice echoed down the hallway, breaking my trance. I turned quickly, trying to hide my curiosity. He was searching for something, probably trying to organize the mess of our move. I'm fine, Dad. Just looking, I replied, attempting to sound nonchalant. Don't spend too much time alone around here. This house has a strange history, he said, his gaze drifting to some distant place. We'll gather for dinner soon. Sure, I murmured, but my heart was still with the door. As soon as he walked away, I turned to face it again. An inexplicable need was pulling me toward it, but the doorknob remained stubborn. I had to know what was hidden there, but the fear of discovering something I shouldn't made me hesitate. That night, while everyone was busy with dinner, I decided I could no longer ignore my curiosity. With the house shrouded in silence, I climbed the stairs again. The atmosphere felt denser, as if the house was watching me. The hallway was immersed in shadows, and the door that once seemed so harmless now felt like a barrier between me and the truth. I need to know, I whispered to myself, placing my hand on the doorknob again. This time, a strange sensation coursed through my body. It was as if the door were alive, pulsating under my touch. With effort, I pressed the doorknob, and to my surprise, it slowly turned. A sharp creak echoed through the hallway as the door opened reluctantly. What I found on the other side left me speechless. The room was covered in dust, as if no one had stepped foot there for decades. Old toys were scattered across the floor, dolls with worn faces stared at me with hollow eyes. It was a dusty playroom, but there was something more there, a palpable energy that made me feel as though I were intruding on a sacred space. Wow, I whispered, taking a hesitant step inside. What happened here? As I explored, something caught my attention. A figure not far away seemed to be standing among the toys. My heart raced as I recognized the face of the girl I had seen earlier. You're here, I said, more to myself than to the figure. She looked so real, so close. The girl, with long, tangled hair and a faded white dress, stood silently, her sad eyes fixed on me. You shouldn't be here, the figure murmured, her voice sounding like a distant echo. They must not know. Who? What happened to you? I felt compelled to approach, but a part of me hesitated. Are you my cousin? She nodded slowly, and my heart ached as I realized that my family's story was intertwined with hers. I couldn't leave. I need help. Help? How can I help you? I asked, anxiety swelling within me. The idea that I might be the key to freeing her weighed heavily on my shoulders. You need to find the truth. They are hiding everything, the girl said, pointing to the dolls around me. I can't rest until the truth comes to light. But what does that mean? What do I have to do? Frustration began to mix with fear. What I was about to discover could change everything. Look at the toys. They know the story, the girl replied, her gaze fixed on me. You need to understand what happened. Only then can you help me. I felt a chill run down my spine. The dolls and toys seemed to watch every move I made. With a mix of courage and trepidation, I began to examine the objects around me. There was a porcelain doll, dressed in what looked like clothing from another era. Her eyes seemed more alive than the others, as if they held a part of the story. You can help me, can't you? I implored. I don't know how, but I'll do whatever it takes. The figure nodded, and a faint smile appeared on her face. The truth may be painful, but it's the only way to free me. I was determined. I didn't know exactly what I was about to face, but I felt it was time to confront the secrets that the house and my family had tried to hide. Let's discover this together, I promised, and the air around us seemed to vibrate with the energy of that promise. Before I could ask more, the lights in the hallway began to flicker, and the room was enveloped in a dim light. My heart racing, I looked at the figure of the girl, and for a moment, she seemed clearer, more present. Are you ready? She asked, and I knew there was no turning back. Yes, I replied, my voice trembling but firm. Let's find the truth. And so, I found myself immersed in a world of shadows and secrets, an invisible connection between the past and the present. What I didn't know was that I was about to uncover not only the truth about my family but also about myself, and that this journey would lead me deep into a mystery far beyond those walls. The atmosphere in the house was thick, as if the air were laden with unspoken secrets. David and Emily, after hours of exploration, decided it was time to open another door. The walls seemed to breathe, and David's heart raced with every step. He didn't know what to expect, but one thing was certain: the house was full of stories that needed to be told. "Let's open this door," Emily said, her voice steady despite the tremor she tried to hide. She approached the doorknob, and David followed, feeling a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Emily turned the knob, and to her surprise, the door opened with a soft creak, as if it had been waiting for them. The room was dark, but the light streaming through the dusty window revealed a scene that seemed frozen in time. Furnishings covered with white sheets, a canopied bed with faded curtains, and a vanity cluttered with empty bottles. A musty, dusty smell hung in the air. "It looks like no one has been in here for decades," David commented, looking around. "Let's see what we can find." Emily walked over to the table and pulled off one of the sheets, revealing a stack of yellowed letters. "Look at this, Dad." "Letters," she exclaimed, excited. "Should we read them?" David hesitated. "I'm not sure we should meddle with this, Emily. It might be something very personal. But what if it's family secrets? We have to know." Her insistence was contagious. He smiled, remembering how her curiosity always led him to new discoveries. "All right," he agreed. "But let's do this carefully." They sat on the floor amidst the dust and began to sift through the letters. The handwriting was elegant, but the words were heavy with emotion. One, in particular, caught David's attention. He began to read aloud, "My dear, each passing day is torture without you. Society doesn't allow us to be together, but my heart has never stopped loving you." Emily looked at her father, wide-eyed. "This is a forbidden love, isn't it? It sounds like someone was hiding a relationship." As he continued reading, David found more details that made him uneasy. "The guilt of our separation weighs on me, and I can no longer bear it. The accident that occurred took not only you but all of us into an abyss I never thought we would see. I need you to know that I will always be with you, even if life separates me from you." "Dad, what does this mean?" Emily asked, her face pale. "What happened to these people?" Hashtag. David closed his eyes, trying to process the information. "It seems our grandfather was involved in something very serious, something that affected the whole family," he said, feeling the weight of the words. "A love that could not be lived, and an accident that changed everything. But who were these people? What happened?" Emily's curiosity was palpable. He took a deep breath, feeling the need to find answers. "Let's keep reading." He flipped through more letters and soon found one that spoke of a tragic accident that led to the death of a family member. "The night of the accident was a stormy night," he read. "I should have never let you go out. If only I had insisted, maybe you would still be here with me." The guilt that permeated the words made David's heart ache. This is so intense," he murmured. "I think Grandpa's guilt over this tragedy was never resolved. That's why he distanced himself from the family." Emily watched him closely. "Do you think the house is showing us this so we can understand? So we can help them in some way?" He pondered her idea. "Maybe. The house seems to be alive in a way. All of this could be a way to make us confront what happened in the past." As they continued to read, more revelations emerged. Letters that spoke of the pain of loss, of separation, of unfulfilled promises. "Here it says that the person who died was very loved, and that the family never fully recovered," David commented, his voice trembling. "Who was that person, Dad?" Emily asked eagerly. "We need to find out who they were." At that moment, the light in the room seemed to shift, and a cold breeze swept through the space. David looked at the window, but it was closed. The air around them seemed to vibrate with a strange energy, and a feeling that they were not alone enveloped him. "Emily, do you feel that?" he asked in a low voice. "Yes," she replied, looking around as if expecting to see someone. "It's like, someone is here with us." "We need to stay calm," he said, trying not to let fear take over. "Let's keep searching." They continued to examine the room, and soon David found an old box in a corner, covered in dust. He pulled it closer and opened it. Inside were ancient objects, a pearl necklace, a brooch, and a small cloth doll. "These items seem very personal," he commented as he examined each piece. "They could have belonged to someone in the family." "Look, Dad!" Emily exclaimed, holding up the necklace. "I think I saw a photo of someone wearing this in one of the letters." David remembered a description he had read and ran his fingers over the surface of the jewelry. "Yes, there's a description here that mentions a similar necklace. This is amazing. We need to find out who all of this belonged to." As they investigated, the atmosphere in the room seemed to change again. David felt a chill run down his spine and suddenly heard a soft whisper, almost inaudible. "Help me, help me." The voice seemed to come from far away, but he couldn't identify where. He looked at Emily, who appeared just as frightened as he was. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice low and apprehensive. "Yes, I heard it," she replied, her eyes wide. "What was that?" "I don't know, but it sounds like someone is asking for help," David said, his heart racing. "We need to be careful." "I want to help," Emily insisted, her determination unmistakable. "We can help this person find peace." "I know, but we need to understand what happened before we do anything." David was aware that emotions were running high, and any misstep could trigger something they couldn't control. "Let's follow the clues," Emily suggested, already getting up to explore further. "We might find more information about this person and what happened." David followed her, but with each step, the feeling that they were being watched intensified. He began to wonder if the house was really alive or if their minds were just playing tricks. As the tension escalated, he recalled that the house held not just secrets but also the pains and joys of generations. After some searching, they found a small diary hidden under the floorboards. David carefully pulled it out, observing the worn cover. "Look, Emily." "A diary," he said, excitement flooding back. Emily came closer, and they sat together on the floor to open the diary. The pages were yellowed, but the handwriting was legible. David began to read aloud, his voice echoing in the silence of the room. The words spoke of the life of the person who seemed to have written it, their hopes, dreams, and finally, their fears associated with the accident. "I don't know how to keep living without you. Every day is a struggle, and the guilt I carry is unbearable. If only I had been stronger, if only I had prevented that trip on that fateful night." David's voice faltered, and he looked at Emily, who had tears in her eyes. "This is so sad, Dad." "They were so close, and then everything changed," she said, pain reflected on her face. "We need to find a way to help them." David nodded, feeling a weight in his heart. The story they were uncovering was not just about pain, it was about love, loss, and above all, the need for reconciliation. The house had become a portal to the past, and now they had to decide what to do with the truths being revealed. "Let's do this together, Emily," he said, determined. "Let's find out who these people were and how we can help them find peace. We can't let this pain continue to haunt our family." Emily smiled, and for the first time since they entered the house, he felt a wave of hope. Together, they had the chance to face the ghosts of the past. The house, with its echoes of history and secrets, seemed to always be watching over them. The air was heavy with the feeling that something much deeper awaited them. My father David and I were determined to unravel the mysteries that dwelled within those ancient walls. That morning, after making some discoveries about our family, I decided it was time to explore further. What I didn't know was that what I would find would change everything. It was a gray and cold morning, the kind of day that makes you want to hide under the covers. But curiosity pulled me out of my room. I was determined to discover more about the house and the new rooms that had appeared. The thought that there were more secrets hidden made me restless but also excited. The feeling that I might uncover something important drove me forward. "Emily, are you going somewhere?" my dad asked, appearing in the hallway. He was holding a box of old photographs he had found in the basement. His expression was one of curiosity, but also exhaustion. I knew the move had affected him. "I'm going to explore the house more. I feel like there's something we still haven't discovered," I replied, trying to hide the excitement in my voice. Dad had always been the type to believe that curiosity was one of the greatest gifts we could have. "Be careful, okay? This house has a funny way of surprising us," he said, with a smile that tried to ease the tension in the air. I just nodded, already moving away, not wanting to waste any time. I climbed the stairs, feeling the wood creak beneath my feet. The upstairs was a labyrinth, with hallways that seemed to stretch and shrink. The door I had found earlier was still there, which meant I needed to open it. What was on the other side? Curiosity consumed me. As I approached, I noticed that the doorknob was different, older and more worn. I pulled and pushed, but nothing happened. "Why won't it open?" I murmured, frustrated. I looked around, trying to find something that could help. That's when I noticed a small crack in the door, almost as if it were waiting for me. "Dad!" I shouted, deciding that I needed his help. Within seconds, he appeared at my side. "What happened?" He looked worried, but there was a spark of curiosity in his eyes. "The door won't open. I feel like there's something inside, something important," I said, looking at him with anticipation. Hashtag, let's try to force it a bit," he suggested, and together we began to push. But the door remained steadfast, as if it were witnessing our effort without a care. "Maybe some oil could help," he said, starting to rummage through his pockets. "Wait here, I'll fetch something." As he walked away, I felt alone once again, facing that door that seemed to guard a secret. While I waited, my mind wandered. What could be on the other side? What was the house trying to hide from us? A chill ran down my spine, and for a moment, I thought there might be something, or someone, watching us. David quickly returned, holding a small bottle of oil. "Here, let's try again." He applied the oil to the doorknob, and with a gentle twist, the door slowly opened, as if it were surrendering. What we found on the other side left me speechless. It was a toy room, but not like any I had ever seen. The walls were covered in dust, and the toys seemed to have been abandoned for decades. Dolls with worn faces, rusty cars, and even a wooden swing, all appearing to wait for a child who would never return. "Wow!" was all I could manage to say. The room was enveloped in a deep, almost reverent silence. It felt as if time had stopped there, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were intruding upon a sacred space. "It's amazing, isn't it?" David commented, looking around with a mixed expression of admiration and sadness. "It seems like this place holds memories of a childhood we never had." I approached a particular doll with long blonde hair and a lace dress. Its expression was serene, but something in its eyes made me uneasy. "Dad, who do you think played here?" I asked, trying to understand more about the story of that room. "I don't know, but I bet they were happy children a long time ago," he replied. "Maybe even, our family." His words echoed in my mind. What could have happened to those children? Suddenly, something caught my attention. In the corner of the room, there was an old wooden box, covered in dust and cobwebs. Carefully, I opened the box and found a worn diary. The cover was torn, but the smell of aged paper gave me an instant connection. "Dad, look at this!" I exclaimed. He stepped closer, and together we began to flip through the yellowed pages. "This seems to be a diary of a girl," David commented, examining the delicate handwriting. I could feel my anxiety growing. "Read a bit for me, please," I urged, barely containing my anticipation. David began to read aloud, and each word seemed to bring forth a new layer of emotion. "Today is my birthday, and I finally got the doll I wanted so much. Her name is Clara, and I promised to take her with me everywhere." My dad's voice trembled slightly, as if he were feeling the joy of that girl. We continued reading, and soon the entries took a darker turn. "Mom said Clara can't come out anymore. Something happened to my sister. I don't understand what happened, but Dad is sad and doesn't talk anymore." The words cut like a knife. What had happened to the sister? "It seems like this girl went through a tragedy," I commented, as the words unraveled in my mind. "She's so sad, as if she's trapped here." David looked at me, his expression reflecting the same concern I felt. "Do you think this girl is our cousin?" He hesitated, and I could see he was trying to piece things together. "Maybe. The diary speaks of a tragedy, and if her cousin was the same one who died?" My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. What else was the house hiding? We need to find out more. "If this diary is real, maybe we can understand what happened to her," David suggested, his determination igniting a spark of hope in my heart. With my mind buzzing with questions, we continued to read. The diary revealed details about a deep connection between the children and their toys, but it also spoke of fears and secrets that piled up like shadows. What else did this toy room guard? "She mentions a secret she can't tell anyone, something that left her scared," I said, furrowing my brow. What could have happened for her to feel that way? David closed the diary, his expression troubled. "We need to find more clues. There's a story here that needs to be told." My mind was racing. What more could we discover? What did this house want us to know? With the diary in hand, I felt we were getting closer to uncovering truths that had been hidden for too long. And somehow, this could help us find the peace we so desperately sought. "Let's keep exploring. I'm sure there's more out there," I said, determined. "Yes, but we need to be careful. This house might be more than it seems," he replied, already rising. And so, we left the toy room behind, taking with us the diary and the feeling that we were about to unravel a mystery that had haunted our family for generations. The tension in the house was palpable. Since we moved in, each day felt heavier than the last. The walls, with their whispered stories, seemed to close in on us, and the unease became a constant presence. That night, as I looked out the window of my room, I saw shadows dancing in the moonlight, and I wondered if the house was alive, if it breathed, if it held secrets that should never be revealed. I went downstairs, trying to find Jennifer. What I really wanted was to talk, but she seemed so distant, lost in thoughts I couldn't reach. I found her sitting at the kitchen table, head down, fingers intertwined. I knew she was struggling with something, but what was it? The house? The past? Or maybe both? "Hey, love," I said, trying to sound encouraging. "Are you okay?" She looked up, and I could see the internal struggle reflected in her eyes. "David, I don't know. This house. It's like it's watching me. Sometimes I feel like I'm surrounded by voices I can't hear, but they're always there. You need to open up to me, Jennifer. What's going on? What are you seeing?" I asked, sitting down next to her. I wanted to understand, wanted to help, but the words seemed to slip away from me, as if the house itself was silencing us. She sighed, and the sadness in her voice made my heart ache. "It's like I'm reliving memories that aren't mine. Things that Grandpa must have done, things I never knew. I can't stop thinking about the history of this house, the people who lived here, and the things they lost." I looked at the table, where the moonlight illuminated a cold cup of tea. "We need to face this together. We can't let these ghosts consume us." That night, the hours dragged on slowly, and the house seemed to stir with each tick-tock of the clock. The silence was only broken by distant creaks, as if something was moving in the shadows. I knew I needed to investigate more about the history of the house, especially about Grandpa. I went down to the basement, where I had found a box of family photos days earlier. The stairs creaked under my feet, and the darkness seemed to swallow me whole. When I reached the bottom, the dim light of the lamp flickered, and I forced myself to enter. The box was exactly where I had left it, covered in dust and cobwebs. As I opened it, a wave of nostalgia hit me. It was filled with old photos, some faded, of people I didn't recognize but felt a connection to. Flipping through the images, I found a photo of my grandfather. He was younger, with a smile that seemed so alive, but there was something in his eyes that intrigued me. It was as if he were guarding a secret. "What are you hiding, Grandpa?" I murmured to myself, as curiosity grew within me. "David? Are you down there?" Jennifer's voice echoed from the top of the stairs, interrupting my thoughts. "Yes, I'm down here," I replied, trying to mask the unease in my voice. She descended, looking hesitant. "Did you find anything?" Hashtag, some old photos. It's strange, but I feel like there's more to this house than meets the eye. Grandpa, he seems to have a story he never told, David said, showing her the photo. Jennifer looked at the image, and her expression changed. "He looks so happy. But there's something dark in his eyes, as if he's hiding something. David, don't you think that could be dangerous?" "Dangerous? What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "The house, the rooms that appear, the visions I'm having. Sometimes, I feel like we're not alone here. Maybe Grandpa attracted something with his secrets. Something we don't want to find," she said, her voice trembling. The conversation made me think. But what if we confront it? What if we uncover the truth? We can't live in fear of what we don't understand. Jennifer hesitated, looking down at the floor. What if the truth is more painful than we can bear? "I can't handle that, David. We have to try, Jennifer. This house is ours now, and we need to understand what belongs to us and what doesn't. We can't let the ghosts of the past dictate our future," I said, trying to convince her. The tension between us grew, and I could feel her internal struggle. I don't know if I can, David." That night, I couldn't sleep. The house continued to creak and whisper, and I felt the pressure mounting. I needed to do something. I glanced at Emily's room, where she slept. The girl was so immersed in her own mysteries and discoveries, and I knew she was also being shaped by all of this. The next day, I decided I needed to explore further. As soon as I woke up, I went down the hallway, where the new doors seemed to call out to me. One of them was ajar, and curiosity guided me. With a gentle push, the door opened, revealing a dark, dusty room. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper, and the smell of mildew was strong. I walked over to a shelf filled with old objects and found a dusty box. I opened it and discovered personal items, letters, photos, and even toys from a forgotten era. I had no idea to whom they belonged, but something told me they were part of my family's history. As I examined the items, I heard footsteps in the hallway. It was Emily, with sleepy eyes and the look of someone about to uncover something important. "What did you find, Dad?" she asked, intrigued. "A room that seems to have been forgotten. Look at this." I showed her the box. Emily stepped closer and began to sift through the items. "These letters, they look really old." She picked one up and started reading aloud. "Dear Maria, I hope you are well. I miss you and don't know how to live without you." Her voice trembled as she read, and I could see the emotions on her face. "Who is Maria?" I asked, feeling a chill in my stomach. "I don't know, but she seems to be someone important. Look, there are more letters here." She pulled out another one, and I noticed the handwriting was different. "This is some kind of forbidden love," she said, her curiosity turning into concern. "This might help us understand our family's story, Emily. We need to know more about these people to understand what's happening to us," I replied, trying to stay calm. We saw that the letters spoke of a love that wasn't accepted, of divided families, and of secrets that led to tragedies. With each word we heard, the feeling that we were unearthing something very deep intensified. It was as if we were opening a wound that had never healed. "Dad, do you think this is connected to what we're experiencing now?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "It could be. The house might be trying to show us what happened so we can deal with it. We need to understand the past so we can move forward," I answered, feeling the weight of our family burden growing. At that moment, I realized I wasn't alone. Jennifer's struggle and Emily's curiosity intertwined with mine, and together, we were stronger. "Let's face this together," I declared, feeling determination swell within me. "We can't let fear control us." We agreed to gather later to discuss what we had found and how we could deal with the visions and feelings the house awakened in us. I knew the path ahead would be difficult, but there was no turning back. The house had its claws in us, and now, we were part of it. As we left the room, the feeling that the house was watching us was stronger than ever. I didn't know what awaited us, but one thing was certain: we needed to confront the ghosts of the past before they consumed us. The atmosphere in the house was heavy, as if the air was infused with unspoken secrets. That morning, after a silent and tense breakfast, I decided it was time to gather the family. We needed to talk, to express our feelings and experiences, and to understand once and for all what was happening to all of us. The shadows surrounding us were no longer just remnants of a distant past, they were becoming part of us. I sat on the living room sofa, watching the faces of David and Emily, both lost in thought. David's gaze was distant, as if he were looking at something only he could see. Emily, with her hands clasped together, seemed anxious, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and determination. The silence weighed heavily between us, and I knew I needed to break that barrier. "We need to talk about what's happening here," I began, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremor I felt inside. "The house, it's affecting us in ways we can't ignore. I feel it, and you must feel it too." David finally looked at me, his eyes carrying a burden that seemed unbearable. "I don't know. I don't know what to think, Jennifer. This house, it feels alive. There's something here, something we can't see, but it's watching us. It's like it's calling to me," Emily said, her voice soft but full of intensity. "I've seen things I can't explain. The diary, and the door that never opens. It's as if there's something waiting for us. I feel like we need to understand what's behind all of this. What happened with Grandpa and the secrets he kept. It's as if the house is revealing these truths to us, and we need to face them," I said, looking back and forth between them, hoping they felt the same urgency I did. David nodded thoughtfully. "I found old photos in the basement. Faces I didn't recognize, people who seemed to have come out of a nightmare. And the letters we found, they talk about a love that never got a chance to blossom, and tragedies that destroyed our family. We need to confront this. We need to come together and share what we know, what we feel. The house wants us to do this. It brought us here for a reason," Emily insisted, her eyes shining with a determination I admired. "And what if we aren't strong enough?" David asked, his voice quieter but filled with concern. "What if the truths we discover are too much to bear?" I looked at him, feeling the weight of his doubt. "If we aren't strong now, we'll never be. And if we don't face this, the house will continue to torment us. We have to do this together, as a family." A heavy silence fell over us again, but I could feel a change in the air. It was as if the walls of the house were waiting for our decision, eager to release what was trapped within them. Emily took a deep breath, breaking the silence. "I'll start. I saw the figure of my cousin. She's trapped here, and I feel like she needs our help. You saw her? David asked, his expression a mix of shock and concern. What did she say? Emily hesitated, looking down for a moment. She didn't say anything, but I felt it. I saw her playing, and then she was crying. It's like she's stuck between the past and the present. And I want to help her. But how? I asked, anxiety rising within me. How can we help someone who's trapped between this world and the next? Maybe if we perform a ritual, ####, something that unites us and helps free the spirits of this house, Emily suggested, her voice now stronger. If we talk about what we found, if we share our pain, maybe we can free them and ourselves. This could work, David said slowly, hope beginning to shine in his eyes. If we are honest and face our fears, maybe we can break this cycle of pain that haunts us. I smiled, feeling adrenaline rush through my body. Then let's do it. Let's share everything we know, everything we feel. We need to open our hearts and set ourselves free. And so, we began to share. Emily was the first, her eyes shining with emotion. I saw the door that never moves, and I feel like it hides something important. I can't stop thinking that if we can open it, maybe we can discover what's happening with our family. David, now more involved in the conversation, added, and the photos I found showed people who looked so happy. But there was a sadness in their eyes. I feel like there's an untold story there, something trapped in the past that still affects us. And I feel like I'm being haunted by visions of my past. I remember moments from my childhood that I thought I had overcome, but here, in this house, it all came back. I don't know if it's the house or if it's me, I confessed, feeling tears threaten to spill. But I know I need to face this. David moved closer to me, holding my hand firmly. We're in this together, love. We'll face this as a family. We need to be honest with each other, and more importantly, with ourselves. My heart raced in my chest, and I could feel we were about to take a big step. We need a place. A space where we can connect. Let's gather in one of the rooms we found, the ones that seem to be charged with energy. It could be there that we can open up and free ourselves. Emily nodded, the determination on her face was palpable. I want to help my cousin. I want her to find peace, just like we need to. The three of us made our way to the room that seemed most fitting, a space with a dense but comforting atmosphere. Light filtered through the dusty windows, creating an almost ethereal environment. With a deep sigh, we sat in a circle on the floor, forming a visible connection between us. Let's begin, I said, feeling a wave of courage. Let's share everything we have, and together, we'll find the strength to confront what this house holds for us. David started, his voice trembling slightly. I feel lost. I don't know how to deal with my grandfather's legacy. The pain he caused. I want to understand, but I'm afraid of what I might discover. You're not alone, Emily replied softly. We're all here for you. And so, each of us began to share our stories, our fears and anxieties. The air grew heavy with emotions, but at the same time, there was a feeling of relief. The words we exchanged seemed to dissipate the shadows surrounding us, and the connection between us grew stronger with each confession. In the end, I looked at them, feeling as if I had managed to open a door inside myself, a door I didn't know was closed. I feel like, in a way, this is just the beginning. The house brought us here for a reason, and now that we've shared our fears, we can start facing what lies ahead. David nodded, a weak smile breaking the seriousness of his face. Yes, and we need to do this together. We can't let the past define us. Emily smiled, her expression now full of hope. Let's discover what the house wants to show us. Together. And so, with our hearts full of determination, we moved forward, ready to face whatever the house had in store for us. We knew that the path ahead could be frightening, but we were prepared to confront our demons and uncover the truth waiting for us. The atmosphere in the Victorian house was charged with tense anticipation. After so many discoveries about our family history, we were about to confront what was buried in the shadows. Gathered in one of the new rooms, the walls seemed to pulse, as if the house were alive and aware of what we were about to do. The air was thick, filled with unexpressed feelings and secrets that seemed to whisper in our ears. "Are you ready for this?" I asked Emily, who was gripping her diary tightly, as if it were a shield against the ghosts surrounding us. She nodded, her expression determined, but there was a hint of fear in her eyes. I understood. That house had the power to pull the ground from under our feet, and somehow, I knew this was just the beginning. Jennifer was sitting in a corner, observing with a distant expression. "I don't know if this will work," she murmured, almost as if talking to herself. I approached her, sitting beside her. "We have to try. It's the only way we'll find peace. For us and for them," I replied, trying to convey a confidence I barely felt. The silence that followed was almost deafening, broken only by the sound of the wind howling outside, as if nature itself were watching our struggle. "Let's do this," Emily said, breaking the silence. She stood up, her posture straight, and gestured for us to join her. I got up and, with a glance at Jennifer, she joined us as well. The room, filled with old objects and dusty memories, seemed to watch us, the walls appearing to close in as we prepared for the ritual. "I brought the letters and the photos we found," Emily announced, placing the items in the center of the room. "I think we need to share our stories. This might help set them free." I looked around, observing the objects that represented a past we had never fully known. "Let's begin," I said, trying to keep calm in my voice. "Jennifer, would you mind starting?" She hesitated, her expression revealing an internal struggle. I don't know where to start," she replied, looking at the letters with a melancholic expression. "So many things from my past haunt me. Sometimes I feel like I've never escaped them." "You're not alone," I said, encouraging her. "We're here, together. Let's face this as a family." With a deep sigh, Jennifer began to speak. "When I was a child, I lost my best friend in an accident. I could never forgive myself for not being there when she needed me the most." Her voice wavered, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "That feeling of guilt has never left me. And now, here, this house seems to amplify it all. And what if that's part of what we need to confront?" I asked, trying to understand what she was feeling. "If the house is showing us our fears, maybe it's to help us overcome them." "Maybe you're right," she replied, looking down. "But it's so hard. I just want to forget." "Forget is not an option, Jennifer. We need to accept and forgive." Emily encouraged her, and I felt a wave of hope fill the air. "Only then can we move forward." "Okay." Jennifer nodded, breathing deeply. "I accept that. I leave my pain here, in this place, so it can be transformed into something good." Next was Emily's turn. She looked at us, her eyes shining with determination. "I have something to say too." She picked up her diary and began to read aloud. "My cousin's death. I always thought that somehow, I could have changed that. If I had been closer to her, if I had helped more, maybe things would have been different. She was so full of life, and I couldn't save her." The room felt colder as her words filled the space. "I feel like, in some way, I'm connected to her. As if she's trying to tell me something." "Then you must listen, Emily. Hear what she has to say," I encouraged her. "I want to help set her free," Emily said, her voice firm. "I think we need to understand what happened. The truth may be painful, but it might be the only way to bring us peace and to those who have passed." ####, that's right, I agreed, feeling that we were all in sync. Whatever needs to be revealed, we're ready to face it together. With that, we began placing the objects in the center of the circle we had formed. The cards, the photos, everything we had found became part of our ritual. The atmosphere in the room shifted, and an invisible force seemed to envelop us. Now, let's concentrate. We need to call the spirits that inhabit this house, I suggested, closing my eyes. Let's all do it together. Spirits of the house, we are here, Emily began, her voice echoing slightly. We come in search of peace. We want to understand your stories and free you from your pain. Jennifer and I echoed her words, whispering the same intentions. The air was charged, almost electric, and the feeling that something was about to happen was palpable. As we spoke, the walls seemed to vibrate, and a cold breeze swept through the room, causing us all to shiver. Someone is here, I murmured, adrenaline rising. I can feel it. Yes, me too, Emily replied, her voice trembling slightly. It's as if they're listening. At that moment, the house began to tremble lightly, and the lights flickered, intensifying the atmosphere even further. I looked at Jennifer, who was visibly scared but also determined. We need to keep going, I said, holding her hand. We're doing this together. Visions began to unfold before us. Images of past tragedies, familiar and unfamiliar faces appeared on the walls, as if the house were telling its story. I saw flashes of pain, love, and loss. It was as if the past was unfolding before our eyes, revealing everything that had been hidden. Look! Emily shouted, pointing to a scene unfolding in a corner of the room. It's my cousin. She's playing. And she looks sad, Jennifer added, her voice filled with emotion. She's trapped between two worlds. We need to help her, Emily said, her determination renewed. We have to keep going. It's the only way to free her. The house was manifesting, revealing its pains and secrets, and we were part of it. What had once seemed like a cold, distant structure was now transforming into a living testament of our intertwined stories. Spirits, we are here to listen to you, I said, feeling the urgency in every word. We want to understand what happened. We are ready to face our truths. As I spoke, the house seemed to calm, as if it were waiting for our response. The tremor in the walls subsided, and a sense of anticipation filled the space. It was as if time had stopped, and the only thing that mattered was the connection we were creating. We're doing this, Jennifer whispered, her expression now more serene. We're facing our fears and pains. Yes, together, I said, looking at Emily. This is just the beginning. We'll continue until everyone finds peace. And so, in that room filled with secrets and memories, we began to unearth the truths that connected and separated us. The ritual we had started was not only about us, but about all those who once called that house home. What would happen next was uncertain, but one thing was clear: we were ready to confront our ghosts and, perhaps, finally understand what the house was trying to teach us. The pressure in the air was palpable as we gathered in the new room. The environment was immersed in a dim light that seemed to absorb all brightness, and the walls around us vibrated with a distant echo of forgotten voices. I could feel my heart racing, a drum beating in my chest, as I looked at my family's faces. David was by my side, his gaze steady, but I could sense the anxiety hiding behind his determination. Jennifer, on the other hand, seemed distant, as if she were battling a whirlwind of memories. Emily stood at the front, a brave figure amidst the fear that surrounded us. It was then that the door to the new room swung open with a crash, as if an invisible force had decided it was time to reveal what had been hidden. I could hardly believe what I saw. A spectral figure stood before us, an ethereal presence emanating a soft, almost comforting light, yet carrying an intensity that made me shiver. It was Emily's cousin, the girl who had tragically died, and now she was clearer than ever, as if she had come to help us understand something that had always been concealed. It's you! Emily exclaimed, her eyes glistening with tears. What are you doing here? The figure smiled in a way that was both sad and hopeful. Emily, she said in a soft voice, like the whisper of the wind. I came to ask for help. The house is full of secrets, and you need to face them. David, still in shock, stepped forward. Secrets? What do you mean? What happened to you? The cousin looked at him, her expression shifting, reflecting both pain and compassion. My fate was sealed by fear and guilt. You need to understand the truth. What happened in our family, it was more than an accident. It was a choice that affected all of us. But how can we help? Jennifer asked, her voice trembling but tinged with determination. How can we change what has already happened? The figure looked at each of us, and the intensity in her gaze was almost palpable. You need to accept what happened. Each of you has a role to play. Pain cannot be ignored, and the past cannot be buried. Only by facing the truth can you find peace. I felt a knot form in my throat. The idea of confronting the truth was terrifying. What if we can't? I asked, insecurity evident in my voice. What if the truth is more painful than we can bear? Emily's cousin tilted her head, as if she understood our fear. Pain is part of healing. But you are not alone. I will be here, and others will too. We need courage. The house feeds on secrets, and as long as those secrets remain hidden, we will not be free. David took a deep breath, as if preparing for a deep dive. I don't know if I can. Grandpa, he always taught us to keep things in the family. Not to talk about tragedies. And now you're here, talking about secrets we never knew. That's why I'm here, the figure replied, her eyes shining with deep understanding. Grandpa had his reasons, but he also carried a burden he shouldn't have borne alone. The only way to free him, to free you, is by facing what he hid. It's time to break the cycle. Emily looked at me, her gaze filled with determination. We need to do this, Mom. We have to come together and face what's hidden. We can't let the pain continue to haunt us. The presence of the cousin seemed to strengthen with each word we spoke. Yes, she said, together, you are stronger. Love and truth can dissolve even the deepest shadows. Don't be afraid to call on me. I will be with you. In that moment, a wave of courage began to flow through me. I looked at David, and in a silent gesture, we joined forces, recognizing that we were in this journey together, no matter what we might find. Let's face this, I declared, my voice steady despite the fear still consuming me. We can't keep living in the shadows. The walls of the room seemed to vibrate in response, a powerful energy enveloping us. Remember, the cousin said, facing the truth is an act of love. And love is the only thing that can heal this house. With a nod, David began to speak, his voice stronger and more resolute. We will accept what happened. We will start to uncover the secrets of our family. We will no longer let fear control us. The figure smiled, and I could see hope shining in her eyes. That's it. Now, let's go together. Let's do what needs to be done. And so, we began to speak, each of us sharing fragments of memories we held deep within us. ####. David spoke about the stories he heard from his grandfather, about the silences that always surrounded our family gatherings. Jennifer shared her childhood memories, moments that seemed to intensify within the house, and how the pain of losing her own family lingered with her. I always thought I should keep all of this hidden, Jennifer said, her voice breaking. But now I realize that only made the pain grow. That's what the house wants you to know, Emily's cousin said. Keeping secrets only gives power to the pain. The truth is a balm, even if it initially feels painful. And then, as each of us spoke, the energy in the room began to change. It was as if the walls of the house were listening, absorbing our words like a form of healing. The atmosphere became lighter, and the presence of the cousin seemed to envelop us in a protective mantle. Whatever truth we find, we won't give up, I declared, feeling determination rise within me. We are family, and we will support each other no matter what happens. The figure smiled, and the light around her seemed to shine even more brightly. That's right. Together, you can face anything. And in that moment, I realized we were on the right path. The truth, no matter how painful, could not be more frightening than the idea of continuing to live in the shadows. The house, which had once felt like a labyrinth of mysteries and secrets, was beginning to transform into a space of healing. But as we spoke, a sense of unease began to grow. The walls trembled slightly, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Visions of past tragedies began to unfold in my mind, as if the house were responding to our call, revealing echoes of a past that needed to be confronted. "Let's keep going," David said, his voice firm. "We can't stop now." And so, with renewed courage, we pressed on, ready to uncover the secrets the house held, certain that, whatever we found, the truth would set us free. When we finally accepted the secrets and pain of the past, something magical happened. It was as if the house, which until then had enveloped us in a heavy and gloomy atmosphere, had transformed. The figure of my cousin, who had been shrouded in sadness and despair, began to glow. She looked at me, her eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Emily," she whispered, her ethereal voice echoing in the room. "You did it. Now I can finally rest." I felt a knot unraveling in my chest. I didn't know how to help you," I responded, my voice trembling. "I just wanted you to be at peace." "You did more than you realize," she said, beginning to dissipate slowly, like a morning dissolving into light. "The truth is what sets you free. Never forget that." With one last smile, the figure dissolved into a burst of golden light, enveloping the room in a comforting warmth. I closed my eyes, feeling tears streaming down my face. The sense of relief was so intense I could hardly believe it. When I opened my eyes again, everything seemed different. The walls of the house, once oppressive and dark, now emanated an aura of peace. It was as if a weight had been lifted from our shoulders. "Did you feel that too?" I asked, looking at my father and mother. David and Jennifer were frozen, their gazes fixed on the space where my cousin's figure had been. "Yes," my father replied, his voice rough. It was like the house was breathing. As if everything was rearranging. I never thought this was possible," my mother murmured, her trembling hands clutching the necklace she always wore. "The house, it was alive, in a way." "It always was," I said, feeling a wave of understanding wash over me. The house wasn't a place of curse. It was a place of healing. Grandpa, he wanted us to face this. David looked at me, his eyes wide. "The will," he said abruptly, as if an idea had formed in his mind. He mentioned that the house was designed to heal the family. "We need to find it." As my father searched for documents, I looked around the room. The environment was changing. The shadows that once seemed to move along the walls were now just shadows, no longer threatening but instead a part of the house's charm. The walls had a new glow, as if they had been washed by an inner light. "Did you feel the energy?" Jennifer asked, looking around as if rediscovering the space. "It's like the house is smiling." "Exactly," I said, excited. "It was waiting for us. Waiting for us to confront our fears." "I just hope he left something that helps us understand this better," David commented, opening a dusty drawer in an old desk. Finally, he pulled out a yellowed envelope, its edges worn, and began to read aloud, "If you are reading this, my beloved descendants, know that the house with non-existent rooms is not a place of pain, but of healing. Each room that reveals itself is an invitation to explore not only the family's past but also the pain and traumas that surround us." "This is incredible," I murmured as my father continued to read. He knew the house had a deep history. He wanted us to discover it. "Each secret we unravel will help us better understand our lineage," David continued, his voice steady. "Love and loss, pain and healing, all are part of who we are." "But why didn't he tell us this before?" Jennifer asked, frustration evident in her voice. "Why did he leave it in the margins?" "Maybe he wanted us to discover it on our own," I suggested, trying to understand what Grandpa might have thought. "Maybe he believed that to truly heal, we needed to confront our own demons." David looked at me, his gaze filled with pride. You're right, Emily. We need to confront what is hidden. Not just the secrets of our family, but also our own. It was at that moment that I realized the house was not only reflecting our fears, it was allowing us to grow, challenging us to become better. It was a journey of self-discovery, an opportunity for transformation. Let's keep going, I decided, determination swelling within me. If the house brought us this far, then we must discover everything it has to offer. With that, we began to explore the other rooms that had once seemed so threatening. Each revealed more about ourselves and our history. What had once been a labyrinth of secrets was now a path to reconciliation. One room that had once seemed empty was now filled with photos showcasing happy moments, while in another, we found handwritten letters speaking of lost loves. Each object, each piece of paper, carried with it a story, a lesson. Look at this! David exclaimed, holding up a small music box. I remember this from Grandpa's house. He always said music had the power to heal. Let me see, I said, moving closer to him. As I opened the box, the soft melody that began to play seemed to fill the air with a sense of nostalgia and comfort. The notes danced around us, wrapping us in a warm embrace. This is beautiful, Jennifer said, her expression softening. The music, it brings back good memories. Yes, and that's exactly what we need, I agreed, feeling the energy of the house shift once more. We need to remember the love we have for one another, the achievements and the joys. Grandpa wanted us to understand that despite the pains, there is always beauty in life, David added, looking at the music box as if it were a treasure. And it's our responsibility to pass that on. Let's do it, Jennifer said, newfound determination in her voice. Let's honor Grandpa's memory and that of all our ancestors. Let's use what we've learned to strengthen our family. With a new purpose, we decided it was time to conclude our ritual. We gathered in one of the newly discovered rooms, bringing all the objects we had found. ##### with our hands intertwined, we began to share the stories that each of us had uncovered, each revelation weaving together into a tapestry of love and understanding. I had no idea that Emily's cousin had such a tragic story, David said, his voice heavy with emotion. She really needed us to help her find peace. It feels like the house has been guiding us, I added, feeling the emotion swell within me. It always knew what we needed to do. As we spoke, the light in the room began to shine even brighter. The energy surrounding us was palpable, and I could feel that the house was truly alive, responding to our testimony of love and reconciliation. Thank you for making me a part of this, Jennifer said, tears in her eyes. I realize now that I'm not alone. We are a family, and we must face all of this together. Yes, together, I agreed. That's what really matters. When we finished sharing, a comfortable silence settled in the room. The walls, which had once seemed so threatening, were now witnesses to our transformation. It was as if the house itself was smiling at us. It was then that David looked at me with a spark in his eyes. Emily, you truly were the key to all of this. You had the courage to face the unknown and guide us. But I didn't do it alone, I replied, touching his hand. We did this together. The house brought us together. That's true, Jennifer agreed, a radiant smile on her face. We are stronger now. And the house, it is a symbol of our resilience. Yes, and we must continue to honor this journey, I said, feeling determination grow within me. We should share this story with future generations. With that, the house began to transform even more. The rooms that had once been dark were now glowing with new life, as if each one was filled with happy memories. The house, which had always felt like a maze of dark secrets, was now a home filled with light and love. The great plot twist that had always been before us finally revealed itself. David, my mother, and I realized that the true curse wasn't the house, but the burden of the secrets we had carried. And now, by accepting all of this, the house was finally free.